The weekend is officially here, and this is use it or lose it to kick you into the weekend action. Obviously, we're going to start off with the Australians, which, as my guest will probably tell you, isn't going to be the most exciting start of things, but they'll sure to be raring to go for the New Zealand matches. But before we dive straight into the matches, I've actually got a little bit of we woke up in South Africa to some more details on the New Zealand proposals for moving out of Super Rugby and their plans on how they feel the competition or their revised competition should look. So no better time than the present to talk to two Kiwis about this and hear their thoughts on it. So, Paul, I'm going to start you off on this one. Firstly, maybe let's start this off here. What do you think has been the issue with the current format, and what are your thoughts on the new proposed format?
Let's be honest, New Zealand Rugby, fantastic. Yes, you guys are the know-alls of rugby. You run a fantastic thing. Please tell us, preach to us as to how the world should be, because that's basically how it's coming across at the moment, boys. Yeah, Steve Hansen. Oh, yes, no, those Australian people, they never play ball with us. They're never good. Ian Foster. Oh, we must have 5 teams, but I'm not sure they should. They're not very good. Seriously, look, the reason the Super Rugby was in decline anyway was because each country wanted their own thing. South Africa, you know what? We're losing all our players, so what we'll do is we'll have an extra team called the Kings. Australia, hey, look, we've just won a Rugby World Cup with 4 teams. You know what? Let's dilute the quality of our teams even more by having an extra team called the Melbourne Rebels. New Zealand going, hey, you know what? We really want the Japanese dollar. Let's get Japan in. And they're all going, oh, well, we better let Argentina in because, hey, you know what? Otherwise, we'll be looked at seeing as being bad. Then Argentina's like, you know what? You're restructuring, you're shrinking. We're not playing with New Zealand. We might lose. What? Come on, guys. The whole reason Super Rugby is in the mess it is now is because each country took its own drivers, its own ideas to what it wanted, and ignored what was actually good for Super Rugby. So the answer clearly here is for New Zealand Rugby to go away, talk amongst themselves, from all the people in the ivory tower. Don't bother talking to any fans, folks. That might be dangerous. Don't talk with your partners either. Don't bother involving Australia. Don't involve the Pacific, who apparently you want a team from, but quite where from. Let's just magic it from nowhere. Just sit in your own little conference room, talk to each other, and come up with your idea, what's good for you, and then tell everyone it must be good for everybody because it's good for us. Yay, that's going to work, New Zealand Rugby. You've just gone and made the same mistake you've been making for the past 15 years by just trying to say, hey, this is what's good for me, and therefore everyone else will just have to deal with it. What a farce. Absolute farce. Look, I'm not saying the actual idea is necessarily bad, but the way they've gone about it has been diabolical. And apparently, not only do they have a structure, but they also have, here we go, to quote allblacks.com, the Aotearoa report also contains recommendations relating to fan engagement. Oh, my word. Have you seen who's involved in this and given these ideas? High performance player pathway, they actually might be good at that. And financial stability of clubs. Really, New Zealand Rugby has not been financially stable for a good decade. So this idea that suddenly it's financially, they can come up with what's financially stable is a joke. Look, the crowd we have here, the chief executive of New Zealand Rugby, one representative from basically Sky, one representative from the minor unions, and then one representative each from the 5 Super Rugby people. Look, those guys wouldn't understand fan engagement if it came up and slapped them in the face, to be blunt. Yeah, I'm that bit hasn't been explained to us, but yeah, their idea that, hey, we'll come up with this magic new format because, hey, look, locking people away for 3 months means we get big crowds at rugby. So clearly Super Rugby is back because we play each other. No, Super Rugby is back because you've locked people up for 3 months. You can't do that every year. That's not a game plan. That's not a strategic solution. Let's lock everyone up for 3 months every year and we'll get good crowds at Super Rugby. Screw the economy. That's obviously going to be a mess and people will lose their jobs. But that's not a worry. Let's just lock people up for 3 months and we'll be okay. So yes, it's New Zealand Rugby. Bit of a joke, really. Sorry. That's my calm and considered opinion. Cornflake, have I? Is that the New Zealand view, or is this just, or is this colonial English person in the colonies telling them how it should be yet again? And he really should be minding his own business.
You know all about it. You're an absolute expert I expect to see the Driving Maul report on this on my desk Monday morning, please. So I can fully examine what's going on here. To be fair, I've seen bits and pieces of it throughout the day. Yeah, but you're kind of on the right sort of track from what I've seen of it. Very much a throwing the weight around sort of thing, isn't it? Saying, this is what we're going to do here. You can do that, but you got to do it this sort of way. We want it done anyway. You can do a little bit of this over here, but it's got to be like that. It's kind of your idea, but it's not really, because it's all our idea. It's the kind of impression that all these things have kind of come across from what I've seen about it without reading it fully in depth sort of thing that obviously Paul has, because he knows it in and out for word almost. It's almost scary what he's been up to today. But yeah, that's all these nations are kind of falling back to that old sort of primitive sort of thing, isn't it? Where they're just going back into the shell of, we can't rely on anyone else around here, or we're not going to rely on anyone else or even involve anyone else. It's all about us. And like you said, it's been like that in the past as well, but it's kind of even more so the case now because, everyone's kind of doing, Australia's saying it a bit as well. It's like, oh, well, New Zealand, it's like, yeah, there's kind of this a little bit of a turf war going on a bit, isn't it? It's like, we want to be with them, but we don't want to seem like we depend on them. So we're going to pretend like we can do this all by ourselves. We're doing it here in New Zealand. We can't do it by ourselves financially. It's not going to happen. Australia can't do it by themselves financially. Who even heard of South Africa? They're the guys that kept this going financially for the past for quite some time. So that's not even in the equation at the moment. So yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more water to go under this bridge. The positive. Everyone's been screaming out for the Pacific Island team, so maybe we'll get that, and that's probably a bit of a silver lining that we've seen from it. But in what capacity, under what restrictions, and things like that, we'll soon find out, I guess. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
But listen, guys. I know you're talking about the system and the method and that kind of thing. But isn't it a little bit a case of, you guys are the cool neighbor. You've got the big house and the swimming pool and all the newest PlayStation. So obviously you're going to be the kid in the neighborhood that everyone wants to go to. So maybe it's not a bad thing that New Zealand have just rolled out their plan and said, listen, this is how things are going to go, and get the Pacific Islanders and Australia on board. And probably the only thing I actually think they need to be more firm is just to tell Australia that 2 teams and that's it, and not even give them this option, because at the moment they're talking about 2 to 4 teams, and I think they should just settle on that first number, because I think personally, I've talked to Paul a little bit before, but probably the biggest issue of why things haven't quite worked as everyone probably would have wanted it to is just because it's become diluted in terms of the team and the strength that you can have against each other. So to me, it's not as much as South Africa playing Australia or South Africa playing New Zealand, but it's a strong South African team playing a strong New Zealand team and a strong Australian team. And as soon as you got that, I don't think the mix is going to matter as much, as long as it's strength versus strength. So to me, that's a big thing. And maybe New Zealand did need to take the lead there. But from a South African perspective, I must say I'm probably going to do a show in the near future on this. And I don't think it's a bad thing for the South Africans to go north at this stage, maybe try something different and see what we can come up with and see where the fans enjoy it. And we've obviously got quite a big expat section that side as well, so hopefully that'll have some viewership there. So we'll see how that goes. But I think for your version, having a Pacific Islander team, as you say, that's going to be good for them. And yeah, keep the Aussie numbers down, and let's see some quality rugby like we've seen from the New Zealand derbies at this stage. So probably not the worst thing in the world, I don't think. Paul, the only other thing I just want to say, do you think this is absolutely realistic, or do you think the unions are all still just getting one-upmanship at the moment in kind of a negotiation setup, where at the end of the day we could just revert back to default, but just have a restructured deal?
I think what we're seeing here is that New Zealand's going to okay, let's try and be proactive and look like we're proactive. Because in Australia, obviously, they've just got a brand new CEO in who's trying to come up with some sort of TV deal, and it's a mess. So they're trying to be proactive, and that's why they're trying to basically go straight past the union and say, hey, look, we want expressions of interest from your teams, and we're going to run it from here because you guys are a basket case. In South Africa, from the looks of it, we've had next to no news out of South Africa from the union point of view as to what is going on from what I can hear. And it just seems to be kind of like, okay, how do we actually get any rugby back up and running full stop? So who knows what the future is for them. Argentina have told all their players, go overseas, we can't afford you. So they basically disbanded the Jaguares on the quiet. And so they're the only ones being proactive. And I think that's basically how they basically said, yeah, look, if we're going to survive, we've got to look after things because no one else seems to be able to get the house in order at the moment. Is this possible? Yes, it is, but it will definitely be at that top end of 10 teams, right? Australia cannot have 2 teams. Twiggy Forrester, with the Western Force and being a multi-billionaire, will have a team in Perth. Okay, you have to have a team in Sydney because that's the home of rugby in Australia, and you have to have a team up in Queensland as well. So they'll have at least 3 teams. Then the Brumbies are the only team. The Brumbies are the best team in Australia and always have been. So they'll be around. So basically, they're just going to get rid of the Melbourne Rebels, which is what they should have done in the first place, rather than the Force, to be blunt. No one in Melbourne gives a beep about rugby, right? They're all AFL, and they've got a good league team that wins things. The last thing they need is a rugby team that loses. So yeah, the Rebels should never have existed, in all honesty, and they should be the ones that go. But so that's what I think will happen. I think we'll end up at that top number. The question I want to know is what is this Pacific Islands side going to be? Is it just going to be Fiji? Is it going to be Samoa? Is it going to be Tongan based? How are they going to go about that? Will it play on the Gold Coast? Will it play in New Zealand? Or will it actually play in the islands? Lots and lots of questions there. Or would it actually be up in Hawaii with the associated with the Major League Rugby team up there? And actually, will we have a Super Rugby team out of Hawaii, essentially the USA, joining in, rather than actually, it might not even be what we would consider or what we would normally think about as a Pacific Islands, i.e. Samoa, Fiji, Tonga. It might be Hawaii, which would be that'd be a real kick in the proverbials for your traditional Pacific Island teams, wouldn't it? If they didn't even get a team now, when as a Pacific team, and they throw it up there instead.
You know what's really weird about the Melbourne Rebels? I was watching an Australian show this morning, Australian rugby show, the Aussie rugby show, whatever they call it. Drew Mitchell and his cohorts, as much of a laugh as he is, but they actually talked about the Rebels when they actually got introduced into Super Rugby, how they were funded into the competition and then at last minute ditched and thrown onto Rugby Australia. So they're kind of hand tied, I should say, to have that team into the competition, kind of like being their little child that they've kind of dragged along the path of Super Rugby along the way. So that all kind of made sense to me of what's happened and what had happened in the past and what's happening with that team as to how they've existed and how they've gone on so long and seem to have been given everything that they've required along the way. So that all made sense. I think it probably is, like you say, time to cut ties with them. But the problem that is with Australia and New Zealand, and it's an age-old, infinite sort of thing with the two countries, is that Australia likes to be the big brother. Like, they are the big brother, essentially. They're the bigger country. They have the more global impact, blah, 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 that sort of thing. But they don't seem to have the balls, excuse the French, to go out there and put the foot down and say, this is how we're going to run things. And that's not rugby level. It's pretty much any sort of level you can think of. They just don't have the guts to go out there and do it. And quite often you do see that combination, because New Zealand, as that little guy will say, hey, let's just go do it like this. And we go in all gusto and, all guns blazing and, through fire or whatever going on, good or bad. And Australia will chip in on what works and what doesn't and kind of follow that lead of how it works. And that's gone on for ages, whether you consider it a good thing or a bad thing. But the two countries kind of do depend on each other in the way they go. New Zealand's a bit more reckless and fearless in the way they do go out and do things because they don't have those same sort of repercussions when things go wrong. We're a small country. We can afford to do that sort of thing. Australia probably doesn't. So they do pick and choose the good stuff. So I think this is probably an age-old thing going on. It just seems a bit gusto, but I think this is the way it's going to go. Australia will say, hey, look, these ideas are good and bad. They'll be behind closed doors, things we'll never see, and they'll come up something, and Australia will say, we come up with this great idea, we'll lead the way in conjunction with New Zealand. It's Pavlova all over again, and they'll come up with something in the end.
And yeah, Pavlova, not Pavlova's dogs, by the way.
I don't know who they are.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one thing is the Australians can't even decide on their own rugby rules at this stage, so it's a bit of a muddle at the moment. Let's go straight on to our favourite topic there.
Well, no,
and
that's the thing. There's also been a report that's come out recently out of a team in London that worked with Auckland University, saying, actually, you know what, rugby needs to have less players. So, let's get rid of a couple of flankers. Let's not have lineouts. And hey, presto, Australia will like the game.
And a kicking rule and a touchline drop and a goal line dropout. It sounds familiar. Listen, straight on to our Western Force there. Paul actually talked about him. I know it was the second game, but let's go straight into the Force. First game out, they cost me a bit of money this weekend, by the way, right at the death there. But 14 points early, and then they couldn't score a single point against the Waratahs in the second half. So Steve, maybe take us off there on that game and specifically the return of the Force. Your thoughts there?
We went into this game, I think a lot of people wrote them off completely, expecting them to be rubbish, expecting them to be garbage. I didn't go for that. Well, you would have seen last week if you tuned into the show here, and in any of my shows and any of Paul's shows that I talked about it, I liked what this Force side kind of had as a core of the team. Yeah, they're not going to be brilliant, but they're playing in Australia, remember, so they don't have to be brilliant to get anything successful over there. So, yeah, they had a good little core of players. I think we've seen that in the first half. They had a game plan. They played well to it. Guys that were in pivotal roles stood up. They had a really good back row that seems to be, if you've got that big, hard-running, ball-carrying back row, it treats you very, very well in Super Rugby this year, whether you're in AU or Aotearoa. Either way, it does do very well for you. And they really just shut the Waratahs out of that game. They scored all the points. 14 points probably was never enough to ultimately get them all the way to the very end. But I think you can't go past that first 40 minutes of rugby and say the Western Force definitely come out there with a plan. They came out there with a way to play, and they executed it well enough to get themselves in a match. And they were in that match for most of that half. What they didn't have and what they lacked is the ability to change things on the fly. And what's really weird is that the Waratahs, a team that have been so, known for this sort of thing, the inability to actually adjust the style of play and execute a plan in the same match is un-Waratah-like as you could possibly ever think. And they actually did this. I would have loved to have seen that Waratahs halftime team talk, or the halftime shed talk, because there must have been some sort of words said in there that actually went through the brains of those players into a way that they actually could change the game and execute some sort of game plan. And I think what it was is that there was a real genuine fear that this such established, such well-known Waratahs of Australian rugby were going to lose to the Force, who everyone's like, Force haven't been here for 3 years, these guys are jokes, what are they? They're nothing. They were going to lose to the Force in their first game of the season. That would have been devastating to the club, to the players. That would have been just an absolute carnage for them. I think what turned this game around ultimately, they couldn't afford to lose that game. They had to do something. And I think things got desperate. Times got really, really tough for them, and they actually stood up for once and put in a good performance in that second 40 minutes and stormed their way back. But yeah, give me the Force any day of the week this season. They're exciting. They're exciting. They've got passion, and they're out there to do something, and they're going to be in every match, I think.
Paul, Steve talked about the Waratahs changing gear there. To me, I think they only started the car in the second half, actually. But so it wasn't changing a game plan. It was just actually starting the one they had at the start. Paul, your thoughts on the Force in that game?
Yeah, and the Force was going to run out of steam each game, aren't they? They're going to be really so. And you're a betting man, so yeah. So but look for where it has Force up at halftime, Force losing. That might be a really good bet from now on for the rest of the season. To be honest with you, they're going to come out and they've got a point to make. They really want to get a win, but I say they just don't have the depth the other teams do. And the Waratahs, my word, can you really put together a better set of players and make them play that bad? I mean, it's got to be you got to feel sorry for Will Harrison. Really good player, young player, and he must be thinking, shoot, what do I have to do to this rabble of guys who are all supposed to be better than me and more experienced than me to get them to play? Crying out loud. I loved on Green and Gold Rugby, an Australian podcast actually said Will Harrison is the the best fly half in Australia since Michael Lynagh. Wow, big statement there. So look, he's a good player, but he's being surrounded by ineptitude, unfortunately.
The problem for him is he plays in Australia. Where does he go?
The Brumbies. The Brumbies are actually a decent side.
They got Aotearoa though. He's not going to go there.
No,
honestly, I think last week I almost lost my 2 guests, and this week I think we lost our only Australian viewer. So thanks. We've been having a great time. Yeah. Listen, guys. Cornflake started off there saying there was a bit of fear of failure from the Waratahs in the halftime chat, and talking about fear of failure. That first match out in that fantastic super point. I don't think we've seen fear of failure like we did in that game there. Everyone was too scared to try anything. Paul, quickly on the game, and then just in general the whole idea of super point.
Do I have to talk about the game at all? Really?
You can skip past the first half.
It was 6-0 in the first half. Oh my word! This was hard watching. This is probably the hardest game I've ever had to watch. Put bluntly, this was awful. Look, there's it was you got James O'Connor, you got Matt Tamua, 2 guys who basically are not fly halves, who are 12s, trying to manage a game from 10, and neither of them could do it, essentially. So you ended up with a game that was just unmanaged by both teams, and it was just a farce. James O'Connor, I mean, look, he's got skills, he's got talent, he will pull off some good things, and he did pull off some good things, but he will not lead you around the park. And so that was the main problem for these 2 teams, is they're both rudderless, with a bunch of with a few good guys thrown in. 18 all, and then what's it called? Super point, or no, not super point. I've gone blank now.
Super time.
It is the extra time. Super time. If there is ever anything that has been misnamed so badly, it's impossible. I tweeted out afterwards saying, "Look, who do I go to claim my compensation for being missold super time?" And the Fox Sports guys couldn't say anything else. They spent 10 minutes, 5 minutes each way, just saying super time over and over again. It was abysmal. Both sides just didn't want to lose, essentially. So all they did was kick it long, and just to avoid losing. Look, extra time is and golden points and are not going to work, because look, rugby tends to be the teams that do well and win Rugby World Cups quite often are teams that avoid losing, that avoid making mistakes. When you get into just look at Super Rugby, look at World Cup finals. A lot of them end up being not very good games, because both sides just go like, "I don't want to lose, just kick it away," and that's all we had for 10 minutes. It was just two teams just kicking it backwards and forwards. Go watch tennis if you want to see that, guy, folks, because that's what it was. It was tennis with a rugby ball.
Cornflake, if I was the Rebels, I'd be a bit afraid of kicking the ball away after what happened there right at the death. Geez, I think you could have fast forward the match and just watch that last 5 minutes. There was quite a bit of normal time. There was quite a bit of entertainment there, and geez, what a finish! I mean, you should just. I think teams practice it these days. Just close out the game, and that was nasty. Straight down the middle of the pitch, and Chris Aotearoa on the wing there just absolutely bulldozed them. Great offload, and I suppose that was probably the highlight from Australia this weekend.
Well, I mean,
what are they practicing? Straight down the middle of the pitch and no kick chase. I mean, seriously.
I want to first establish the quote there that Paul just made, as in for all eternity. Driving maul, Paul. Teams that win the Rugby World Cup are generally teams that win.
Yes, they don't lose. Yeah.
On to the game. I mean, let's look at the positive.
It's not quite true, though, because, England have got a Cricket World Cup to show without winning.
The Reds, let's talk about the Reds. I mean, the Reds are the little team I like to watch along with the Force. So I think they'd be quite good. But adding on to what Paul said about the 10s, I think that was a big part of this game because I'll get that out of here. Get that out of here, cheap blooming boundary hitters. No chance of that. The fact of the matter is you've got two, like Paul said, two 10s that like to play further out, but they like to play attacking sort of rugby. They like to run. They like to offload. They like to create space. They don't like to kick to the corners. They don't like to play to set pieces. They don't like to do that sort of stuff. They like to run and they like to play exciting, as good as Australian rugby can be rugby. That was not going to happen in those conditions at all. Hands were like feet. It was terrible for that sort of gameplay. And I think bar that little period at the end there that you talked about of normal time, that was the only time that really come off. I mean, there was two pretty audacious passes at the end there that luckily somehow stuck. And to see a hooker scampering a good 30 or so meters to score a try to possibly tie it up is something that, I mean, even Brad Thorne couldn't help but crack a smile at the end. So it was good from the Reds, though. Give them a bit of credit here. They were out of that game when Reece Hodge scored that try. You know, the way the game had gone and then the failing ability to score points, you thought the Rebels got this one. And I even thought, well, there we go. There's first loss of the season for me. But, everyone got that loss, didn't they? So the Reds did well. They fought back nicely, got that try at the end. And, I mean, there was that little hope that, as they went on about super time will be fantastic. That was an utter disaster. But why? The big question I have in that game is why Bryce Hegarty took that shot at goal. Why did he take that shot at goal? He hasn't kicked all season, I think. I could be wrong on that, but he certainly hadn't kicked that night. Why did he take that goal? It should have been, the guys that were taking it already. Yeah, maybe a bit too long, but at least they're going to be match ready, in that sort of kicking atmosphere with the conditions, that sort of thing. I don't think he really ever had the confidence to knock that one over, sadly. But, he just about knocked himself over trying to watch it or will it over the sticks as it went through. But, entertainment at the end, boring for probably 75 minutes. Well, 85 minutes if you want to count the super time as well. So, yeah, a pretty average one to crack off the weekend, wasn't it?
Steve, one I think probably won't go to super time this weekend. Your boys are back later today. Do you think the Force can give the Reds a run? I mean, on the face of it, you have to say the Reds are probably a little bit better than the Waratahs. So if we draw a direct line, it could be a tough day at the office for the Force.
Yeah, for the Force, yeah. I think it's the Force are going to be in games, which is good because, traditionally they haven't been. But they're going to be in games. They're going to compete. I think it'll be a good, different sort of test for the Reds because they need to see they've played a similar sort of game style and they've played a similar sort of way. They need to kind of keep themselves evolving and changing because they were pretty average in that game against the Rebels, the opening game. That would have been really disappointing for a start off, not to pick up the result. I mean, both sides were really, really average, but this is a different sort of Force team. They're going to have to adapt to the way that they're playing. They're going to have to play pretty well too, because the Force, they're not going to go away. And we've seen from them already when they're playing well and they're playing to the game plan, they're going to kick to the corners, they're going to run their forward pack around. And we know that Reds forward pack, is a big, big unit that likes to get the ball in the hand. If it becomes a territory kicking game, that could be pretty interesting, and they'll probably play, I think, into the Force's hand as well if they can get down and kind of swamp the game into an area that could play nicely into how they want to play the game. The Reds will want to, they want to open it up, and as they do, rain, hail, or snow, and try and get those big boys rumbling over some defenders and scoring some points because, the Reds are the top try-scoring team in Super Rugby in Australia in the last season. So that's what they do. That's what they like to do. That's how they like to play. It is Australia, so it's not an incredibly high standard, but it still goes the way of how they're going to go out there and play. And I think the Force will be tested defensively, but it depends if they can execute that game plan and find the grass to the touchlines and get that sort of territorial-based dominance. They could be in for a competitive night for, hopefully 60, 70 minutes. At least.
Well, I tell you, you suffered your first Super Bowl loss, I'm sure, on the Islanders this past weekend. So just make sure not to pick the Force in this one. Driving more that the dinosaur spine of the Force, will it be good enough to last the 80 this week?
Now, I don't think it'll last the 80, but with John O'Lance, at least they've got a scrum. At least they've got a fly half, unlike the Reds. Other change to the Reds. Also, Bryce Hegarty has lost his place to Jock Campbell. At fullback, so it's going to be interesting to see how he inserts himself into the line. Playing three playmakers hasn't really kind of it's been an interesting experiment, but I think Jock Campbell will be an interesting one there. But yeah, John O'Lance leading this team around, can at least lead this Western Force team around the park. And yeah, I was wrong about them last week. Let's be blunt. So the and that back row, that young back row of theirs is real fun. And so this weekend's gonna be fantastic. I mean, Stowers, Ferris, Stander. Actually, Ferris isn't that young. Against Wright, McWright, Wilson. That's where you want to watch this one, folks. That's where the fun's going to be. I think is those two sets of loose forwards going at each other will be is what I'll be looking at. The rest of the game, yeah, whatever. But yeah, just that's where the fun's going to be. But no, I say Western Force at half time, Reds at full time. That's where you want your money to be.
I'm looking at the wingers this week. I think Daigunu and Aotearoa will run ragged there. I think the Force are gonna try and play catch up, but it's gonna be, hopefully it's gonna get ugly. I won't admit defeat last week. I think we saw in the second half that they could ship some points. So let's stick to that. And Daniela Tupou, I think he's gonna be crazy this week. Going on to the second game there. We've all said it thus far. The Brumbies, the most complete Australian team. That front row. I mean, they're starting with Slipper and Painga and Aotearoa as the captain, and they still got Scott Searle on the bench. I mean, that's the kind of depth that no Australian team has. Not even in the starting lineup, let alone having a Wallaby on the bench. So, driving ball, your thoughts there to the Waratahs. You know, can they turn things around? Can they switch on for that one game that they do a season, or is this one-way traffic?
Well, look, I guess this is actually the most fun game on social media of the season with in Australia, because the Waratahs and the Brumbies social media accounts on Twitter tend to be quite fun, having a go at each other. I must admit, I've not actually watched them this week. I don't know if those guys have been fired or not, because a lot of people have lost their jobs in Australia. But generally, the most fun around this is actually the build-up and watching them on Twitter. No, the Waratahs, no. I mean, look, if you're going to struggle against the Force and you're going to lose to the Reds, oh boy, you are going to get shown. You're going to get taken to pieces by this Brumbies team. There's actually a decent rugby team. Is it a great one? Is it a wonderful one? No, but it is a decent side.
Tavita Kurajani, Tom Banks there at the back of a solid set piece.
He's back, brilliant. Oh yes, he's an exciting player. He's yes. Keep your eyes on Tom Banks. Oh, I didn't realize he was. I was just looking at the line now. Yeah, you're right. He's back. Oh, that'll be fun. He's
obviously. I'm also backing my favorite hooker to get the first try there. So, Steve, your thoughts? You're thinking it's all the horses this week?
Yeah, it's hard to go past them, isn't it, when you talk about that? Well, not only the front row, but the rest of the team as well. The big clash for me here. We've talked a little bit about Will Harrison on one side, but it's a clash of the number 10s. So Will Harrison, the future of Australian number 10 versus against another prospect future Australian 10 and Noah Lolesio. Those two guys going at it head to head. We'll get to see what they're really made of against each other as well. So that's probably the only shining light really that Australian rugby can look at this one and say will be a big difference maker. What's going to help the Waratahs, I think, is Carmichael Hunt coming into the team, actually starting at 12. I think he made quite a big impact off the bench last weekend. So his addition to the starting team has pushed Joey Walton out to 12 and Alex Newsom right out to the wing as well. That has moved Paul's favourite player onto the bench, which I'll let him work out who that's going to be. But yeah, on the other side, it's a tough test, isn't it, when you're coming up against such a talented forward pack, a talented backline as well that can really spark and do some really devastating things with ball in hand. Kieran Drani's, that guy has probably been a bit quiet, really, from his standards. You want to do a bit more. But yeah, Tom Banks, Annie Muirhead, Tom Wright, those guys can all completely tear teams apart if they want to on their night. So if they play their game plan, at least those guys go free. They could be exciting to watch. And I fear for the Waratahs, but no one really likes them anyway. So yeah, go the Brumbies. I have not met one person I've done any videos with that, bar the Scottish Cannon. Everyone else dislikes the Waratahs immensely, which is really weird.
Yeah, I must say this side of the divide, old Michael Hooper, as I told you guys last week, is I think everyone loves to hate him. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And yeah, obviously we all know Carmichael Hunter's got a hunger for the white lines there, so he should go well.
Of course, you mean dancing down the white, yeah, with ball in hand down the white, yes, tiptoeing down the white line. Ben Donaldson will also actually be an interesting player coming off the bench. Yeah, development player. So I'll be interested to see how he goes actually. So yeah, I'll keep an eye out for him.
Wrong guy. 22, Paul. That's your guy. 22.
I know 22 is my guy. Okay, Mark.
Every week.
You try and line him up.
The one you need to watch. It's like a song.
One day they'll make a song about him, man. One day he's just got to play five more years. Okay, guys, listen, we've done our bit there. We've covered the Australians, so now let's get stuck into it. And probably wanted to leave this one for last, but let's just call it straight away. Probably the game of 2020 thus far. The Crusaders and the Blues. It delivered. It was, I think, a little bit of a classic there, and yeah, the Blues didn't disappoint. But as we so often say, in a losing cause against the Crusaders, you end up giving your all, and you look up at the scoreboard and you've lost by 10. Paul, let's take it straight to you there. Your thoughts on the Blues do everything they could there.
Oh, look, cracking game, absolute cracking game. The pace and the intensity of this was right up there. It was a real, a really good one. But yeah, just didn't. It was one of those ones where you see. So a player that's been recently voted as the player's favorite wing or the player's best winger. So there was a secret poll done here in New Zealand of 100 Super Rugby players. And they said the best winger in New Zealand is Bridge. And a lot of us were like, what? And we're scratching our heads. Like, look, good player, all black, but is he really the best winger in New Zealand by a comfortable margin? He got something like 40% of the votes. And then you saw what he did against Mark Talia. Talia skinned him a couple of times early on, and he was like, I'm not having this. And then basically shut Talia down from about the 10th or 11th minute onwards. And Talia did nothing else all game. And you could see and he's, Talia's one of the sort of breakout players this season, and Sky was like, right, look, we've got this highlights package. We've got to show it now, saying how great Talia's playing, but he hasn't done anything for the past half hour because Bridges just totally shut him down. So yeah, it was one of those ones where, as you say, the Crusaders let you do something, realize what you've done, and go, you're not doing that again, and just shut the Blues down. And so yeah, wonderful play by the Crusaders. Blues threw everything at them, but just didn't have enough. At the end of the day, I think the scoreline's a bit harsh as well. I think it was closer than that, but hey, we've seen the Crusaders did this against the Hurricanes the other week, didn't they? So it's a close game until the last 10 minutes, and suddenly it's a 20-point lead. Boom! It just blows out. So yeah, again, this one up until the hour mark, the Blues are leading, and then suddenly they lose by 11 points. Don't even get a losing bonus point, which I think was a little bit harsh. But there you go.
Steve, a bit of deja vu there.
He's putting the knives in the back straight away. Oh, it's only the first game we were looking at, and he's already put the knife in the back. Oh, goodness me! Hey, where do you start with this game? It's a game you could talk about. We could take the whole show up just talking about this game, couldn't we? How good it was, the changes, the shifts, the momentum, just went to and fro either which way. But I mean, if you want to sum it up in a bit of a nutshell, yeah, like you say, it was typical Crusaders, but it's how they play, doesn't it? And like Paul says, they watch you play, they let you play your game, they evaluate how you play, and they're so professional and they're so well executed as a squad. They adapt, they change, they move themselves around, and they counter everything you do, and then you're deeply in trouble. So the thing with the Crusaders, they went into halftime 1 point behind. That is brilliant. They'll love that. They're absolutely perfect, considering they got dominated in that first half for about 30 minutes of that game. Then the second half started out much the same. The first 30 minutes, or maybe you say 25 in that second half, they were out. They were completely getting dominated by the Blues. And they just have that ability that when they're comfortable and when they feel they know how the game's going and how their opponents are playing, they just turn it on. And that's what they did. They're always within, an attacking chance. They're always within that sort of one score of being right back in the game, if not in the lead. And then when it comes to the end of the game, comes to, Crusader time, they just flick that switch and they just go to a next level. And I think if you want to credit the Blues for something, you can credit the Blues that they had that ability to push the Crusaders into that next gear, because the Highlanders maybe did a little bit, but they still seem to just be cruising as they just completely wiped them out at the end of that match. But this one, you saw the noticeable change when they switched into that next gear. Mo'unga changed. He transformed from just having an average cruisy game to being just a superstar. You know, the bridges, like Paul's talked about, you don't notice it so much because a player will just go missing, like Talia did. And that's just how the Crusaders play. It's not that they do something amazing. They just shut down what the other team is doing. So it's that ability to do that. And that's where guys don't really get the credit. I mean, you can easily say a guy like Jack Hood, who's been pretty average and ominous this season for the Crusaders, but it's the work he does around the ball, linking up with players. That's why that partnership hasn't changed, because it's just gelling so well, and it's keeping itself nicely intact and keeping that backline shape from the inside guys to the outside guys. So it's just Crusaders rugby, and they just watch, they evaluate, and then they attack. And when they go, no one can keep up with them. No one at all. No, not even the Blues. The Blues thought they were in and hosed there, but when they changed in that last minute, it's just crazy. The level that they can play at, no one can keep up with them, and they just completely blew it away.
And again, you can't switch off, right? So Aotearoa showed some real rugby now, which I've not seen him do before, which was really good. Where they had a penalty in front of the post, so he does a tap and go, knows they're all offside, he's going to get out, and they bashed over and got the try there. And he created that try with quick thinking and good play. What happens? The conversion gets charged down, so a crowd that's been silenced suddenly erupts. Now, from the TV, you're like, yeah, it's just a charge down kick. Actually, it's what Mo'unga does next that changed the game. But from what I hear inside the stadium, the atmosphere changed entirely with that charge down. And then the Blues are asleep. You should never let someone grub a 10-meter restart and collect it himself, right? There should be someone stood there. But no, that person wasn't where he should be. They fell asleep. And yet again, you fall asleep, bang, they score, they take you out. Same as the Chiefs did. They fell asleep. Other teams have fallen asleep as well for 1 minute, and boom, suddenly all the momentum's against you, and you're in real trouble.
But guys, I mean, we've touched on this previously, but just from almost a neutral's point of view, how good is it as New Zealanders to just think about someone like Cody Taylor, Richie Mo'unga, Haskins Satuto, and Will Jordan, who are just, these are key positions in the team, and key guys where you've had probably, legendary status players who have recently, or maybe even not so recently, just retired or left the stage. And all of a sudden you've got these young stars who just seem to be, and especially in Cody Taylor and Mo'unga, who are absolutely ready to step up and be those senior All Blacks almost, and just take the team. When, it could be so easy to have that decade or a few years where you struggle to find that guy that's at that same level, or at least close to the same level. I mean, going from a Carter to, finding anyone near that vicinity is crazy. Going from a Kieran Reid, looking for someone that's, worthy of a 8, and obviously legendary hookers that you guys have had, and now Cody Taylor. I mean, it must be a great position and a great feeling to have at the moment.
It's just the way that New Zealand rugby rolls them off. They just, I mean, the next layer is already there. They're already there playing, in the what do they call them? The reserve grade of Super Rugby. They have all those teams that are playing out. They're playing in the club rugby games. They're already there building to that next sort of tier, and you just see them break through. And that's what's great about a post-World Cup year as well, is because all those players leave and everyone goes, oh, no, they're all leaving. No. But it's great because you get to see all these guys just explode. It's like, hey, I'm getting all this game time now. Watch me shine. How much would have we seen of some of these guys had those players stayed on for another 2 years, say? So, if you've seen a Kieran Reid stay on for another 2 years, we would probably seen Fitu Douglas go out 6. We probably wouldn't have seen Cullen Grace at all. And now, we are seeing him and we're going, whoa, this kid's got some ability, and, he's so young as well. So that's what's great about it. All these players just explode out and they just have their time to shine. They're getting game time and they're getting into the game. They've got those other guys who are still at their peak of their powers, like, you say the Mo'ungas who are coming into it now, those sort of guys. And then there's that next tier that are building up through to that level. So it's all that tiered system that just it just keeps rolling on. So that's what's great about it. And it just continues on, doesn't it? And I mean, the next layer's there. It's waiting and ready to go.
But I mean, you mentioned those 4 players. Only Cody Taylor will start an All Blacks test. Richard Mo'unga probably won't even make it into match day 23 because you'll have Beauden Barrett at 10 and Damon McKenzie at 15. So again, Hoskins Sotutu is not going to be the incumbent 8. That's going to be Ardie Surveyor. And fullback, I say, it's going to be Damon McKenzie. It's not going to be Will Jordan. So those 3 might not even make it into the match day 23. Never mind being a starter.
You just got to remember the world's best fly-off was moved to fullback for Mo'unga in a World Cup. So I'm not convinced yet. I'm not convinced yet. I think Mo'unga is pretty ready, especially if Beauden's moving around the place at the moment. I think Mo'unga could be getting a few starts at 10. So I think that could change a bit.
Well, no, it was more that Damon McKenzie got injured and Beauden had to cover for Damon McKenzie. It was kind of like, who is the most like-for-like player for Damon McKenzie? And you're looking around going, nobody. Okay, well, we'll pick the fastest fly half in the world then instead. But to play at fullback, yeah, and it was more that they everything was centered around Beauden Barrett, Damon McKenzie. That was the entire All Blacks game plan, was around those 2, and then D-Mac got himself injured. How dare he? I mean, seriously. So that's the only reason that Mo'unga was even in the squad.
Well, we'll see there. We'll see. Going on to the let's get Cornflake in here. I know he's chomping at the bit to talk about his team's fantastic first half performance against the Hurricanes outfit. He just pretty much blew them away there, and actually it was a weird 5 minutes before the break that things just turned around and went drastically wrong. And I think that's where the game was lost, Cornflake.
No, I don't really want to talk about that first half at all. No, we'll just pass over that and we'll look to the future. I mean, to be honest, they were due a bad match. Let's be fair to the poor lads. You know, they've had a great season so far. A big crunch match like this where they could really, make that 3rd position their own. They fell off the horse big time, and I think, that's a bit of a combination of probably the last 2 rounds before that, where they had to play, the Blues and then the Crusaders. I think confidence has taken a bit of a tumble. They were really be annoyed about that Blues result, and I think that ending of that Crusaders game would have just completely shattered all confidence because they were looking so good. They were in that game nicely, and like Paul has put a dagger in my back about already tonight, just completely blew them off the park. So they were going into that, I think, in a bit of a sad state, whereas their opponent, the Hurricanes, probably quite chuffed to get their first win of the season, albeit against the Chiefs. So, they didn't play well in that first 40 minutes. Nothing really went right. They couldn't even hit shots on goal, and they come up against a team that took the chances, I think, is probably the big thing to come about there for the Hurricanes. They've got a guy from your side of the globe, Cobus van Wyk, who I just think is he's not such a brilliant player. He is just a guy that does his role well. He catches the ball and he'll put it in the corner. He'll beat the odd defender now and then. Yep, but I mean, the try he did score was a stunner. We did actually beat 2 or 3 defenders, but generally, he's just that guy on the end at the right place at the right time to take that overlap pass. He doesn't make the errors. And I mean, look at the difference. Wes Houston was playing on that wing. How many tries did he score? I don't think he's got any. And now Cobus has been out there and he's scored like 4 or 5 in that amount of rounds. So he's really changed the game for them, just the ability to finish and be at that right place for them. And of course, Jordie Barrett is obviously the guy that is really pulling the strings for that team as well. So big change having him back there. But yeah, the Highlanders weren't at the park. They just weren't at the park at all for that first half. And the basic things just weren't working for them. Those key guys that were standing up weren't working. The back row, how it's been so amazing in those big crunch matches, just weren't there at all for them. So it was a bit of a shame. But yeah, like we talked about earlier, it's not these guys, they aren't the Crusaders. And I mean, to expect that run of form to keep going would have been great. But I think it had to come to an end sooner or later.
Paul, your thoughts on this? Is the Hurricanes I don't know, retreaded team, converted team since Jordie Barrett is back? TJ Perenara seems to finally be lifting his game a bit. Maybe even Ardie starting to get a little bit closer to his form. Is it now time to start worrying about the Hurricanes?
Look, they're definitely improving. But look, the wins are over the Chiefs and the Highlanders, not the Crusaders or the Blues. Let's be honest here. So look, with Geordie in there, they were looking a lot better, a lot more balanced than they were previously. So yeah, he's made a big difference to them. And TJ's calmed down. Someone's had a word with him, which is really good to see. So those two things have been massive for them. So yes, they are much better. I think we are talking now about Blues, Crusaders, Hurricanes, Highlanders, and then Chiefs down there somewhere. So yeah, they're definitely improved.
Hopefully.
Talking about the Chiefs, right down there, Cornflake. You think you said last or just now that the Highlanders just couldn't keep it up. Do you think they've been able to regenerate, or you think it's now fourth game without a break, they're going to run out of steam eventually, and probably realize that that momentum of that first win is now well and truly gone? And I know you've shared some pieces there on Aaron Major and where he's really the right guy, and are they starting to wonder about the future, or is this still very much a committed Highlanders team who feel like they're still hunting that third spot in this competition?
Oh, definitely still hunting that third spot. The big thing this weekend is that they've got a lot of guys coming back, so they're being refreshed, I think, by the returnees of some injuries. Guys that I think are going to add some bit of spark, guys that they rely on, guys with that energy that I think is going to boost them a bit. So I'm talking the guys like Josh Ioane is a definite one, gives them that nice headache again, that in that sort of playmaker position. Because you got Mitch Hunt, who's been so good and in such good form. It gives them that ability to play two really good playmakers. What they do with that is another question. Whether Hunt goes back to fullback later on the matchup when Ioane can come off the bench. But that, and finally we can say it. Finally, he's back. Josh Mackay is in the team. So he's starting on the wing. So, I mean, that is a little bit of enthusiasm. That is a game-breaking guy they can rely on out wide as well. And Folau Fakatava, another one we've been preaching about as well. He's on the bench. So, I mean, spark is definitely there. And I think energy is going to be reinvigorated back into the Highlanders team because they can step it up. They've still got that. They need a bit of fresh. I think I agree if they need a bye. Would be a great time for them to get it right about now. But I still think these guys coming back, instead of losing guys and having new, fresh faces coming through, they're getting guys come back that are familiar, guys that have been at that level before. Gives confidence with that experience as well. So that's going to definitely boost them. And I think this is a game different to the last 3 weeks now for them. The Blues are always the underdogs. They played really well. There should have still been a boost of confidence. The Crusaders, they really, like I said, they really pushed them really, really far. And I think they were proud about that. But to lose it so badly at the end would have really hurt them. Their Hurricanes game was a bit of a battle for third, and I think they fell off the pace completely with that. But now this is that must win. Everything is on the line. There's nothing to lose here. If they lose this, they go 1 win each with the Chiefs, or it's then you're in a dogfight because they don't play the Chiefs again, and the Chiefs don't play them again, obviously. So that is, someone's got to find a win against one of those top 3 sides or those other 3 sides if they want to break out of that battle for the bonus point losers, because whoever gets losing bonus points could climb out of that bottom spot. So they don't want to be in that battle. Win this game, Chiefs will get thumped for the rest of the season. You're safe. It's all sorted. Don't worry about it. So it's crunch time. It's go time. They've got to step it up.
Paul, what are you expecting from a returning Chiefs team? You think that have the break and come back and step it up a level, or you think we're going to see the same kind of struggles and the Highlanders actually probably not deservedly being slight underdogs in this one?
There's a couple of interesting selections here for the Chiefs. I mean, they've put Ansel Brown back into the 13 jersey and brought Alex Nankivell into 12, which I think is Ansel Brown is the best 13 in the country. Now, look, I'm a great fan of Quinn Tapia, who is definitely a 13 as well. But Alex Nankivell is a good 12. I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that works out. Caleb Trask starting again at starting again at 10. Sorry, show my English public school accent there with them saying Trask rather than Trask. It is a bit of a surprise selection there at 10. And there is a certain element here of what have they got to lose? So why not give him a run out? Let's be honest, Aaron Cruden's hardly a spring chicken, is he? 98 caps apparently, so he's 2 away from his 100. That'll be fun when he gets that in a couple of games' time. But Brad Webber really needs to be given a platform, and he needs to put in a decent performance. Otherwise, I can't see it changing much. It's going to be that's what it really comes down to. Mitchell Brown back is good, but a proper playing 2 proper locks is good. But when Adam Thompson is your lock coming off the bench, yeah, you got to like that. You got to like that Highlanders bench, just purely because hey, it doesn't have Adam Thompson on it as a lock. But it does have Ethan de Groot, which is an interesting one. What a fantastic name that is.
Another Southlander. 3 Southlanders in that lineup, by the way. Just thought I'd add that little bit at the bottom there. Yeah, some little Southland muscle to get the job done. Just pay the respects to good old Elliot Dixon, who leads the way there.
Now, I mean,
in the past.
Look, you're saying Flower for Kataba, who we want to have in. Fantastic. The only reason he's there is that Kane Hamilton's got a season-ending injury.
Who cares about Hamilton? Go on. Yeah. Go on. Get out of here, Kane.
And I mean, the balance of your outside back 3 or your back 3 there. Scott Gregory really a centre rather than a winger, out on one wing. Josh Mackay really a fullback, out on the other wing, and then Steady Eddie, Michael Collins. Yeah, the front boys have got to do this because that back 3 does not. I'm glad Mackay's back, but yeah, if they're relying on the back 3, then they're going to lose this to the Chiefs.
Not a chance.
Yeah, I must say that back three Islanders versus Chiefs. I know which one I prefer, but that's not really fair given that you've got BMAC and Alamalo and that kind of guys there. So it is tough. But I must say the move of Aaron Gruden to the bench, I think it's almost a little bit of a changing of the guard happening there. It's a little bit of a realization from the Chiefs that this season is gone and we probably got to look a little bit to the future. So it is quite interesting that they've gone that way. But I agree that Anton Leonard Brown moving to outside centre, that's a concern because, yes, I've probably put the poison chalice on the Islanders again because I'm on them 2 weeks in a row. So hopefully this time around they repay my faith. I know I took some shots in the last night's show with everyone backing the Chiefs, even backing them at a 5.5 handicap. So I'm outright on the board Islanders. So hopefully this week we see a big show from them. Then, guys, onto the next one, probably the big game of the weekend there, Islanders and Hurricanes and Blues. Paul, maybe start us off there. You're quite fond of a bit of a strange Blues setup. I thought the market came out during the week and it was even money basically both ways, and I thought the bookies were crazy. Yeah, it's Blues all the way. If you look at form lines and momentum, and I know the Blues lost, but and the Hurricanes are turning things around, but. Just look at the way the Blues performed. To me, it was quite a good indicator that defensive effort. That's not something you see every day from a Blues team. They really muscled up and they showed up on defense, and that shows a lot about their attitude this season. So I thought that was a good thing. We all know that they can blow anyone off the park amongst the backs, but seeing that kind of effort on defense was good. But then the team news wasn't so great. Hoskins is gone, and Plummer is still at 12, which might not be the best thing in the world. So a few concerns. Parsons out as the starting hooker, which is, usually causes a little bit of a disruption, even though he isn't a world beater. So a few little, and obviously the big one, my man Caleb Clark, who's been fantastic on the wing. He's also missing out. So definitely not positive news on the team front. Paul, you still you positive on the Blues getting the job done this week?
Well, to start with, you've missed off the big news, which is that Dan Carter was lined up to start this game. Was lined up to be in the match day 23 for this game, but pulled out because of a tight calf. So yeah, so we've not got Dan Carter either. We would have had him for this game.
It must have been that heavy workload of his that forced the calf out.
Well, he did play 80 minutes for his club for the first time in the first time about a decade. I think he probably played less. He probably played single figures games for his club, and he got given his blazer. You're like, what? Deary me! Come on, your blazer game isn't like your third or fourth game, folks. Anyway, moving on from that, you got Hoskins to 2 out is a big one. Losing Caleb Clark as well. is another one. So those two are definitely concerns. Aotearoa will obviously want to make a big statement in the 8 jersey now, and say, look, this is actually where I want to play. I don't want to play at 6. So it's going to be interesting. Noah, on the left wing, who's come in for Caleb Clark, had a really good season, might say cup season with Bay of Plenty, but he played mainly on the right wing. He played mainly in the 14 jersey, had a game at 15 as well. So it's going to be interesting to see him on the left there. A smaller Fijian, so yeah, Van Wyk will probably have the size advantage over him, I think, in that one. Actually, in the back 3, the Hurricanes will have all the size advantage in that. Look, I think the Blues have got so much momentum, they've got so much positivity. They're playing a much better style. Yeah, you've got to back the Blues in this one against Hurricanes, who've got some interesting selections, to say the very least. The way that they've switched things around. Again, Gordon Bashop suddenly back in, so obviously they decided that that Fletcher Smith had a bad game. I'm not quite sure where that. I'm not saying he set the world alight, but he wasn't disastrous last weekend. Peter Manger Jensen comes in for Vince Arso, who played decent last weekend. So yeah, some questionable changes there amongst the for the Hurricanes. And still expecting TJ Perenara to spend the last 20 minutes at some fly half. Oh dear. I don't like that at all.
Cornflake, let's lead into the predictions. Basically, you think that your Super Rugby pick, which way you're going on this one? I think this will give us a good indication.
I'm sticking with the Blues because I made this pick at the start of the week. So before I write any of my previews, any videos, anything like that, I always make my predictions first, stick with them throughout the week. I went with the Blues by 8. I kind of regret that decision now because I didn't realize that all these players are going to be injured, and that's the advantage that the Hurricanes have in this game. They are going to probably try to shorthand themselves to the best of their abilities. Now, when I look at that back line and I see a guy like Laumape and then Vince Arso going up against Plummer and Ioane, and I don't care where you put Plummer or where you put Black, but I see Laumape going up against Christie, Black, Narawa, Plummer, Ioane, Talia, or Barrett, I see guys getting squashed. I don't care who you put there. I see guys getting squashed. I see Laumape and Vince Arso going up against any of those names. I see guys getting squashed twice as much. I see that in Ben Lamb. I see
Arso's
that, and anyone. Sorry?
Arso's not playing.
Exactly. That's my point. When I look at this, that's what I see. I see a big advantage there to the Hurricanes that they've missed out on, that they've dropped the ball on, because Umaga Jensen is a similar sort of size sort of guy, but he's not going to bring that combination that those two have in midfield that Laumape and Arso had. That's why I think that was their biggest trump card. Play those guys, fire it out into midfield, any which way you go, doesn't matter. Get it to one of those big guys, just squash people all day long. That is how you can get over this advantage line against the Blues team. It's been helped, obviously with missing out on Satutu there, and then Aaron Carroll is a guy who's pretty much an unknown, so what effect he's going to have on the game, we won't really know. But yeah, that is the area I think really was a big advantage for the Canes going into this. Got Red Prince back as well, which I think will help that back row with a little bit more experience coming into that. But yeah, when you look at this game, and I look back at round 1 where they lost by 10 points, and now I look here, what we've learned over the last few weeks, and I think Hurricanes got a lot bigger chance winning this game than they did back in round 1. I think this is a game that with those changes, the Blues still persevering with this Harry Plummer idea. I mean, you see Fletcher Smith got pulled because he had a bad game. I mean, what did Harry Plummer do? How's he still kept a spot in the lineup? It bewilders me what he really offered. And then, not much else really screams out that the Blues are probably going to destroy this like I originally thought that they would have done. So, big chance for the Hurricanes to actually do something. And if I was going to pick again, I'd go by a lot smaller margin. I'll probably still tick the Blues by a couple of points. But certainly not by the 8. But, man of the word, got to stick with what I've originally picked. But if you want to go with the original pick now, we're seeing the teams lining up. I think that the Canes got a good chance. I think they could match up in some key areas here with the way the Blues are changing and trying to fix something that clearly isn't broken. It's like they're trying to develop a plan to overcome something that's not there. they're jumping an invisible wall. All sort of analogies you want to come up with. It's just weird, and it's so typical Blues that they're doing this. It's working, Blues. Don't change it. Guys, get into Caleb Clark. Yep, you want to go and have some time, family time. Sweet. I mean, 100% we understand that. Injuries, all that sort of thing as well. But what's TJ Faiani done? I mean, again, he's a guy that could actually stand up to a Laumape. He's a guy that, they have two guys just crashing into each other all day, but it's a like for like, isn't it? I don't know why Harry Plummett's going to offer, apart from kicking the ball away, that is, going to better the Blues against someone like Laumape, who's been in fairly good touch this season as well. So, yeah, I mean, go the Hurricanes is all I can say. I think they're going to push them all the way to the end.
So, yeah, I mean, Plummett's not that small. He's a decent-sized guy. Aaron Carroll, so people know. I'm not expecting him to dominate Laumape at all, but hopefully he'll stop him or be a bit of a speed bump.
He's tall,
he's
not
tall.
strong.
Oh, okay. Aaron Carroll, Bay of Plenty, Steamer guy. So again, another guy came through that way, but a bit of a late developer. Came through, played for Thames Valley initially, but so didn't come through your traditional professional pathways. Is 26 now, making his debut season for Super Rugby. So yeah, a lock mainly, does play flanker a bit. So interesting to see. So another big guy at 6. So look, their jumping option should be fine at the line out. The mobility of him around the park is going to be the question mark when you're up against Artie Surveyor and Karifi. So yeah, so that the mobility is going to be the issue, I think, for the Blues in the back 3. I've gone Blues by 3, yeah, I think this is a much improved Hurricane side over what the Blues faced the first time round.
Okay, yeah, you guys aren't really helping my confidence there, but I'm 100% in agreement. Before team news, I thought this was Blues by a score, so probably 7 or 8 points, and yeah, now I think the bookies are pretty much right. It's a coin flip for me, but I'm having faith in that defensive effort of the Blues. I think the Hurricanes will come out fast in that first half an hour, and if they can hang on, then I think they might when TJ comes on off the bench and they change things up a little bit. Hopefully things change a little bit, but they just need to make sure that they're not two tries behind by that stage. So that's
where
I'm.
the Hurricanes, the way that they play too, that defensively, the Blues probably aren't used to that sort of style because the Hurricanes didn't play like that back in round 1. That was a later on 2-3 round where they come in with that really fast charging defense. That is something the Blues haven't really come up against. So how that's going to affect the game is going to be a big factor as well. Yeah, the Blues have been solid in defense, but it's a different sort of defense they're going to get from the Hurricanes. It's going to shut them down whatever path they go through. So that'll be interesting. I think if they do play that same sort of style, it could be a defining thing in this match.
Hopefully, my man Kobus van Wyk doesn't get a couple on the wing there for us. We need Talia rather. Okay, guys, let's hit on to the predictions. I'll skip the Blues one. I think you guys have pretty much nailed your colours to the mast there. Let's go to the Aussie games. Reds and Force Cornflake.
For this one, I like the number 8 at the moment. It seems I'm going the Reds by 8 to get the job done over the Force there.
He's got it so wrong. Reds by 7.
Okay, nice one. Waratahs Brumbies.
Waratahs Brumbies. I'm going a little bit larger. Brumbies on the road, doing it by 11.
Brumbies by 7 for me.
Mix it up, Paul.
And then last one, Chiefs and the Islanders.
Oh, this is the one that's going to get you all. I'm staying loyal to the boys. No deviation. We're going to take this one home. We're going to bring it back to Forsyth Bar. 2 games on the road. We've been up in that smelly North Island for far too long. We're bringing the cookies back. Waikato, brace yourselves. It's going to be the Highlanders by 2. Gatlin might not do it, but this time you're going to have to look out for Josh Ioane and Mackay.
So I'm going the other way. Chiefs by 3. But I think it's going to be a tight one. So yeah, this is one where we're going to disagree. I think the other 3 are pretty easy to pick. I think this is the hardest one to pick by some way.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree on that one. Again, early in the week, got on the Islanders, but yeah, it's not with a heck of a lot of confidence. I just kind of think that finally they surely can pull one off. They've been knocking on the door, and let's hope it's, as Brent said last night, it's probably going to go either way. Either they're going to just come completely unstuck this week, or they're going to get the job done. I don't think it's actually going to be quite so final move of the match kind of decider. So let's look into that one. But guys, thanks so much for joining me as always, and see you next week, and enjoy the rugby. And yeah, I do watch your wrap up shows as well, so enjoy all the action that you guys get up to, and have a good one.
Thank you very much.